Welcome back. This is TPC MAAP Algebra 1 2024, and we are starting on practice set 3. First, head over to the MAAP official practice test site and choose your test. Select subject math, grade Algebra 1, and test practice session. Scroll down, and where it says take it online, you're going to start test, continue, X to get out of the tutorial, and press this blue button, Start Test. When you get into the test, you can use these arrows on the top right to navigate through the test, but we're jumping all the way to item number 32. So click on Review, and you can scroll down and click on the 32 to go directly to that question. This question is giving us two functions of x, f of x and g of x, and we're looking for values of x that are solutions to f of x equals g of x. At the bottom of your toolbar here, it says Calculator. You're going to click on that button. It will give you a Desmos calculator. Pull it to the right, and I'm going to pull this over to enlarge. And go ahead and type in your function f of x. The second function is g of x. You can use the keypad at the bottom to get absolute value signs, or there is a vertical bar above your enter key. If you'll type shift and then that key, you can use those to type your absolute value. I like to make these different colors, so I'm going to press and hold the second one and change it into, let's make this one purple. So now I can see f of x is my parabola and g of x is my absolute value function. So the question is, what value of x is a solution to this equation? Well, unfortunately, if you type f of x equals g of x, it just basically recreates f of x and ignores the f of x function that you already had up there. So that's not going to work. So what we're going to do instead is, instead of saying f of x equals g of x, we're going to say x squared plus 1 is equal to the absolute value of x plus 3. And what that will do is it will add some vertical lines to the graph to indicate where those solutions are. So if your students don't already know, the points of intersection of the parabola and the absolute value function, those are showing you where the solution or what value of x makes those equal. And so the two values of x that make it equal are x equals 1 and x equals 2. So let's verify that. Let's do f of x, or excuse me, f of, what was that? Not 1. Negative 1. Well, negative 1's not an option. So let's do the one that is. I think there's a 2 in here. If you do f of 2, you get 5. And if you do g of 2, you get 5. So that means f of 2 and g of 2 are both 5. If I type any of the other answer choices, let's say f of negative 3 and g of negative 3, that was answer choice A. You'll see the outputs are different. I get a 10, I get a 0. So in the standard, they want you to identify the points of intersection on a graph, but realistically, your students can just plug in the values for x and see which values of x give the same output. And for most students, that's conceptually easier to handle. So we're going to say f of 2 is equal to g of 2, because both of those give an output of 5. The correct answer was D. The next question we're looking at is question number 36. We're giving a linear function, a line in a graph, and we're asked which statements are true. And so we have 5 statements to choose from. So I'm going to open up my calculator, and I'm going to see if I can plot some things here and see if that'll help me. Now, the first thing I know is I don't have an equation given for the line, so that makes it a little bit more challenging, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and type in the point -40, which is in answer choice A, and we're going to label it. Now, first off, you'll notice right away that this grid does not look very much like the one on the actual test. So to make it look more similar and to make it easier to compare, I'm going to click the wrench on the top right. I'm going to remove the minor grid lines. I'm going to add labels X and Y, and I'm going to count by ones. So where it says step, I'm going to make ones here. Now, this is really probably still too big. So if I go out onto my graph, you'll see it's not really going to show those grid lines. But if I zoom in just a bit, and how far did I zoom in? Like -6 to 6, -8 to 8. Let's do -8 to 8. -6 to 6. If I zoom in just a bit, I'll be able to see those grid lines. And now, if I pull this up just a bit, whoop, it didn't like that. Okay, there it is. -40, is that a point on the graph? Well, if you'll notice the -40 on this graph, the one that's on the test, there is no line there. It looks as though this is crossing at -60. So that is not a correct answer choice. Using the answer eliminator, which is in the bottom of your toolbar, you can X out this answer choice and then move on to the next one. The next one is the point 0, -4 is on the line. Well, let's type it in and see what it looks like. When we click label, we can now see 0, -4 is here on the y-axis, and it does appear that this line is intersecting the point 0, -4. So I'm going to choose this one. Let me get off my answer eliminator, and I'm going to select this answer. It says the point 3628 is on the line. Well, I'm pretty sure if I go right 36 and up 28, that's way up here. This line is nowhere near that because there's no part of this line that's in the first quadrant. So hopefully your students wouldn't even try that one. The next one says the graph that represents the equation. Well, let's try typing the equation in just as it appears. 2x minus 3y equals -12. And right off the bat, I see the slope of that line is positive. It is not intersecting 0, -4. Let me get rid of this point, by the way, because I know that one's not on the graph. But no matter what, I can tell right off the bat this one's not going to work. Click on Answer Eliminator, and we can cross this one out. So let's try the last one. It says 2x plus 3y is equal to -12. Now look at that. It goes straight through 0, -4. It does appear, let me move this over. I can move that a little bit to cross the x-axis at -60, and that's what I'm seeing here as well. So of the two, this one is definitely better, and it is the correct answer. So go ahead and check it. Remember, anytime there are 5 answer choices, 2 of those will be correct. It will indicate select 2, so be sure to instruct your students to look for that. The next question is 37, and we are looking at one variable statistics, and we're trying to pick the box plot that best represents the data. Now, here's where the calculator is limited, but we can still do it, and we do have a little bit of functionality. We just can't graph it because they did turn the graphing off for the statistics in the testing version of Desmos. So to start, I'm going to create a set. So I'm going to type a letter, and you can pick any letter that you want. I just chose A equals, and then you're going to open with a square bracket. Now that's right above your enter key, kind of right above your, I guess, your apostrophe on your keyboard. So put the square bracket and then start listing the numbers. It is important that the kids count these numbers and double check and make sure, because honestly, this is where the biggest number of mistakes happen, is just typing in the numbers. Students will omit a number, they will type a number twice, and those sorts of things. Once you have typed all of your list, it should say there's a 14 element list, and that's when your student should stop and recount all the numbers in the list and make sure there are exactly 14. Most items actually do tell you in the text of the item how many elements there are, so they should look for that too. That might help them. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is go to the next row. Now we don't have the ability to type box plot. I'll show you what that looks like. Box plot is all one word, and then you would put A. But see, when you try to do it, it's going to give you this triangle that says this calculator does not support the box plot function. So we will not be able to graph it the traditional way that Desmos does graph these. Instead, we're going to use stats. So we're going to type STATS, and as soon as you do, you're going to open parentheses and put whatever letter you use to name your list, you're going to put that in the parentheses. Any letter will do. So right off the bat, I see the minimum is 0. And if you look at all of the figures 1 through 4, you notice that every single graph starts at 0. So that's not that helpful. Q1 is the left side of the box. And so the left side of every box is at 0. This is the little box in your box plot. All right, so far nothing's been helpful. The median is that vertical bar in the center of your box, and the median is 1. Well, right now I notice that A has a median of 1 and B has a median of 1, but C and D both have medians of 2, so those are out. I'm going to click the answer eliminator, and I'm going to cross out figures 3 and 4 because the bar inside the box is not where it's supposed to be. It was supposed to be at 1. All right, the next thing I want is Q3. Q3 is the right side of your box. Well, both of these have a Q3 of 2, so it doesn't really help me. And so the last thing I have to do is the maximum. Well, here's where we have an issue. The maximum is 20, and both of these graphs appear to have something at 20. But at 20, this is an outlier, and at 20 here is just the right whisker. Well, if you look at your list, there's only one number that is even 2 digits in this list. All of the numbers are very small, and that one number is way higher than all the rest. And hopefully your students know that is an outlier when you have a number that is, I think it's 1.5 times the width of your box. But they don't really have to know that in this one because it's so far away that it's of course an outlier. So if we have an outlier, we want to indicate that in the graph with like a star or an X or something like that. I believe on your practice test I put a circle there, but it's going to show it separately, and then the next highest number will be the right whisker instead of the maximum. So if we look at this list, the next highest number was 5. And it does appear that this whisker stops at 5. So the correct answer for this problem was A. The next question is 39. This one is a quadratic function, and we're looking for the zeros of the function using an equation. So the first thing, again, is to open the Desmos calculator and type in the function f of x. In general, when you get one like this, depending on how the question is asked, if it's an open-ended question, it's way more difficult. But if it's multiple choice, you're just looking for equivalent expressions. But here's the problem. If you type the equals 0, it's not going to look the same. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's go to the second row of the calculator and type in the first answer choice. The color is the same, unfortunately, so let's click and hold the red dot on the left side of this row, and let's change it to some other color. I'm going to make this black. And by the way, for those that are visually impaired, you can make it dashed or dotted instead of a different color so that you can tell those apart. All right, and then if I put the equal 0, what's going to happen is my parabola is not going to show up. So anytime I'm doing one of these, I usually tell my kids to start by just looking at the original factors and don't use the equal 0. And you can use the equal 0 if you actually need the solutions. And in this case, we don't even need the solution. So equal 0 is not that helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, and then right away I see that answer choice A does not produce the same parabola as the original function, so I'm not going to choose that one. And the same is true for answer choice B. It's not the same. But answer choice C, let's try 2x plus 3 and 3x minus 5, is the same. So if you turn this one off, you'll see underneath the red one, these are the same parabola. So I can use these factors to find my zeros, which are negative 1.5 and 1.7 approximately. The correct answer was C. The last question we're looking at is 42. And in this case, we have a function that is quadratic. We only are given a graph, not an equation. And there are 7 answer choices, and we're to choose 3 out of the 7. So to begin, I'm going to create this graph as closely as I can in the graphing calculator. So let's go ahead and put this in. We'll start with the wrench on the top right for our graph settings. The label on the x-axis is time. So I'm going to type t seconds, but please note we need that x. We're going to need it when we type these answer choices in. So I'm going to go ahead and put the letter x. They do put the letter x on the graph as well. So we're going to use that when we type in these answer choices. Now the values on the x-axis start at the 0. So put a 0. They stop at 2, but really they go a little further than that. So you could go to 2.2. And it is counting not by 0.4 because you notice there's some grid lines in between these. So I'm going to step up by 0.2. The step is what we're counting by. The y values on the graph go from 0, and they don't go to 10, they actually go to 11. And even though the numbers count by 2s, the step is technically going to be 1 because they are putting grid lines between these numbers. Now for the y value, I'm just going to say h feet, which I'm guessing is height because we're talking about her tennis serve. Now, if you'll look in the background, you can see all these little tiny grid lines. Click on minor grid lines to take those off. And now look at the graph. It's way more similar to the one that we see here. So the question is, which 3 answer choices fit this scenario? So the first 2 answer choices, sadly, a lot of kids pick them because they think that's always the answer when it comes to functions. But in most contexts, these are never answer choices. So unfortunately, Desmos won't help them for this problem. They have to know all real numbers do not work in a real context because all real numbers include square roots and negatives and all kinds of crazy things that don't really fit. And in this case, we couldn't have a negative time or a negative height, so we can't use all real numbers. Cross both of those answer choices out with your answer eliminator. So the next thing I'm going to do is type in where this function is increasing. And here's the problem. If I type a t, and I'll show you what this looks like, it's going to give me an error. Or it's going to give me a slider, which isn't going to give me a graph. So you see over to the right, I don't see anything, nothing's happening. And over here, it's going to say we only plot double inequalities of x and y. So it's telling you straight up, don't use t. I can't read that. So tell kids if the x variable, if the x-axis is labeled with something other than t, or other than x, just use x. It's okay. So I'm going to put an x in there. And now you'll notice that part of the graph has been shaded in. So the question is this graph rising where that is shaded in? So the kids do have to look back to the test and see what is that parabola doing between these 2 numbers, between the 0 and the 0.38. And hopefully they can tell that right here is where we're looking, right here on the left side of this parabola. If you go from left to right, it's going up. This is increasing on the interval 0 to 0.38. So we're going to check that. In a lot of cases, they're going to provide the equation and the graph so that kids can recreate it. It makes this item significantly more easier to do and more challenging it is when they don't have the equation. So if they have the equation, they can actually just type it in and duplicate this and see that the graph is rising in this shaded region. All right, the next one says the function is increasing from 0 to 8.3. So I'm going to change this one. I'm actually going to leave that one. Let's do a different one. And the problem with this one is it's filling up the whole graph. It's saying it's increasing everywhere that you can see, and that's not true. The right side of the parabola is decreasing. So this one does not work. And then the next one is the same problem. It starts at 6 and goes to 8.3. So I'm going to turn this one off, and let's do 0 less than x less than 8.3. Excuse me, 6, not 0. Now you can't even see it, and that's because you got to zoom way out to see it, but it's way over here, and that is way outside the context of this problem. So we're not going to do that. Let me get back to where I was, somewhere in here. All right, so this is where we were, something like that. So this one doesn't make sense either. Hopefully they know that and they don't even need it. So we're going to get rid of both of those. So far, we only have one right answer, and there's 2 left. So I guess they're both right. Let's see if that's true. It says the function is decreasing on the interval 0.39 to 0.76. So let's type this one in. Now, if yours is still red or some color just like that one, be sure to change it. Now notice on the axis it's going from 0.4 just a little bit to the left of 0.8, and it looks like this graph is decreasing between those two numbers. So in this green region is where the kids need to be looking, and it is decreasing, so that one looks good. We'll go ahead and choose that one. And then finally, we want to see about the interval from 0.39 to 0.76. So 0.39 is less than x is less than 0.76. Oh no, I didn't do it right. 0.76. We already did that one. 0.76 to 1.1. My bad. All right, so that's the purple region in my graph. And you'll notice that the purple region, if you zoom in a little bit, you can see it. I'm going to pull this over because I know y'all are having a tough time seeing that. If I pull this over, I can see that it's somewhere between 0.8 and 1 point something. And if you look at your actual test, you see where that is? It's going to go all the way down till it crosses the axis. And so the purple region is also decreasing. These are very challenging items. Not many kids get these right. I'm just going to let you know. I seriously doubt one will show up on the official test that does not also include the equation. That will make it easier for them to tell because they'll be able to see their shaded regions right on top of the graph. But in this case, the only ones that worked, the 3 answers, were the function is increasing from 0 to 0.38. That was the red region in my graph over here. It's decreasing from 0.39 to 0.76, which is just some random point in here. So it's decreasing right up here at the top, and then it keeps on decreasing all the way to 1.1. A brand new practice set is available to you. It has questions just like the ones you just saw, and you will be able to download that for free of charge until next Monday. So on the 18th of March, it will no longer be free. So be sure you jump on that right away. So if you're in my store, and I will give you the link in the show notes, scroll down where it says best sellers, change it to most recent, and it will pull up the most recent stuff. And so the most recent is the one that just came out today, which is practice set 3. So go ahead and click on it. When you get in there, it's going to take you here, and you'll get to see a couple of pages. I did show you the answer document to give you an idea of what's on it. And so this is what it looks like. You can use the paper answer document, or of course you could put your or just have them write it on the test if you're just doing a practice session together and you're not really scoring it or anything. Or you could enter this in Edulastic, which is now called Pair Assessments, or some other version of a digital test. You may note here that there is a box plot question on here, a box plot question we just did today. So you'll be able to practice that skill with your kids and show them how to get those statistics that they need to answer that question. As always, if you have any questions about this practice set or about any of the practice sets that have come out, please leave me a comment or a question and I will get back to you. We'll continue with another video for the last 5 items tomorrow, so stay tuned. Y'all have a great day.